Welcome back to the National Hurricane Center. This is Ken Graham right here in our operations area for your 2 p.m. Eastern update on Hurricane Henri. We still have 75 mile per hour winds. The movement moving north-northeast at 17 miles per hour. We'll get the hurricane hunters back in there around 5-6 o'clock this evening. They're going to go back and start looking to make sure we have the center fix and look at those winds for us. It really helps us out. The other piece of data that we get is, well, we look at this satellite here, and that's the center right in here. You can start seeing some of the outer bands forming and some convection well to the north up here. So some of that could reach the coast and provide some rainfall well ahead of Henri. And that's what we talk about. You can't just focus on the center point. Those impacts could be well outside that center. And you can really see it here as well. You start looking at the actual center point that we have at 2 p.m. This right here, that's the radius of tropical storm force winds. And you look at some of these wind radii. We look at it currently. We also forecast that into the future. So if you think about 140 miles or so on that east side away from the center, you start talking about 70 miles away on the west side. All you do is carry that along our forecast, and you can see why we have some of the watches and warnings that we put up at the Hurricane Center. You have the hurricane warning right there in red, and that encompasses Long Island, that encompasses Connecticut, Rhode Island, even over to portions of Massachusetts. But remember, it's so large, you carry that on, and that's why on each end we have those tropical storm warnings, and that does include New York City. So let's look at some of the timing. Tomorrow morning, that's where the hurricane will be, off the coast. And if you think about this point here, see where those winds are? Let's draw it. Those winds are going to be starting to reach the coastline of Long Island and then start spreading into Connecticut. So significant amount of wind. And the hurricane force winds, well, it's much smaller than the tropical storm force winds, smaller radii here. But even at this location, you can see a large area that can still see some of those hurricane force winds. So you think about all the wind. Talking about the wind here with time, Massachusetts Monday morning in portions of western Massachusetts, and then New Hampshire Monday evening, and then moving into Maine by the time we get into early Tuesday. All this wind, and you put rainfall on top of that, and it becomes a dangerous situation. You think about Fred came through here and already saturated a lot of the soil in these areas, just heavy rainfall. And now we're going to put more tropical rain on top of that soil. Some areas 4 to 6 inches of rain, even 6 to 10 in some of these areas. But don't really focus on the exact locations, because what happens is small movements in the storm, some of these rain bands could expand left to right with time. So places like Hartford, Albany, Long Island to New York, any one of Poughkeepsie, any one of these areas could see some significant rainfall and the chance for flooding. Saturate the soil, and we already looked at the wind. You're going to knock over trees. You're going to knock over power lines. Significant power outages in these areas. You have to prepare for that. Get ready for those power outages and the potential of flooding. The National Weather Service forecast offices will be watching that rainfall and issuing those flash flood warnings. Listen for those and make sure you're in a safe place. After the storm, power outages, we want to use generators. I know that will happen quite a bit. It always does. Please review the instructions. Be safe. We don't want any carbon monoxide fatalities. Let's really review how to stay safe with these generators. Keep them out of the house, keep them out of the garage, keep them outside, keep them away from open windows. Got to keep safe. Keep the exhaust well away from where you are in the house. So let's try to stay safe after the storm. So rainfall, wind, let's cover the storm surge as well. I did want to say before I forget, look along that track. There's a lot of people on the beaches, on the shores. You're going to get some rip currents. Be very careful. You're going to have this onshore flow. You get some very dangerous rip currents. Listen to those local officials, and if they have warnings for that, just really be careful in that water and stay out of the water in some of those dangerous areas. Speaking of water, storm surge. One of the big impacts we have associated with these, especially when it comes to fatalities, historically a storm surge leads the way in those fatalities. Nantucket Sound, you look at Buzzards Bay, Narragansett Bay, over towards Long Island Sound, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. And we account for left, right, bigger, smaller, stronger, weaker. We put all of that into the modeling. This is water up your pant leg, independent of the tides. This is on top of those tides. This is what we would expect on top of that. So 3 to 5 feet is a significant amount of storm surge. So be very careful. These low-lying areas, please listen to those local officials. Some of these traditional areas that are going to flood, it's very dangerous. If they ask you to leave, please do so. Very important. Outside of that, I don't want to leave this out. Even you start looking up towards the Merrimack River, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge, just significant. Cape Cod area, 2 to 4 feet. Even back in New Jersey, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. So watch out for that as we go forward over the next couple of days. So I think I've covered everything. Dennis, thank you for having the camera back there and keeping us on tune here. We'll keep you updated as we get the latest information, but the biggest thing here is no such thing as just a tropical storm, no such thing as just a Category 1. We've got to take this serious. It's a dangerous storm. Please be prepared. Winds are going to be there tomorrow. You got to today to get ready. This has been Ken Graham here at the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida.